Okay, Kim. So if you want, we can start. Thank you for being here and taking the time to explain to all of us how conversion works, how to track it. And now I know that you're going to tell us a little bit more how to optimize it just in a quick way. So again, thank you for being here.
Perfect. Thanks for having me. So if I don't know if any of you were at the INA conference, but I like to talk. But I definitely want to make sure that we answer questions. If there's something that's unclear, you can kind of unmute yourself and ask. If it's something that's going to be a little bit deeper, I'd say hold it till the end. But I'll definitely try to, if not on the session, I'll kind of respond via email or something like that afterwards if it's a deeper conversation that we need to have.
Yeah, if you want, what we can do is like if someone has like a burning question, they can raise their hand in the app, and I can stop you and organize a little bit. And if you want, also we can make like a short pause in the middle of the presentations to see if we can answer some questions, and then we continue if it works for you.
That works for me. I've got a couple of spots that are probably good to stop and answer some questions.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. So let's see here. To share my screen. Let's swap that. All right, hopefully you guys are looking at a big slide. Are we good?
Yep.
Cool. So today, the purpose of today's chat is to really talk about what's a relatively new release within Enginehire, which is around conversion tracking. And some of this came about through a conversation that I had with them in terms of the need to have really clear conversion tracking that we can easily attribute into Google Analytics and Google Ads. So I want to talk through at the beginning about why we need to do conversion tracking, and I'll give you what I feel are three really solid reasons. I'll talk through a couple of different options as far as Google Analytics and Google Ads. And then we'll really dive in because I want to spend most of the time talking specifically about implementation. And there's a couple of places where I'll actually stop and walk through the process so that you can actually see what it's going to look like and not be surprised. So we'll talk about how to create your Google Analytics account, what to actually do within Enginehire. We'll talk about how to set up those goals in Google Analytics and then how to pull those into Google Ads. Some of you I don't think have met me before. So my name is Kim McCumber. I call myself a solo agency because I don't really like the term freelancer. So I started Floodlight back in 2014. My background is actually in chemistry. I have a master's degree in chemistry, and then did a sharp left turn. Found myself in love with digital marketing. Worked in a digital agency in Chicago for about 5 years before I launched Floodlight. I've had the pleasure of speaking both at the national conferences for APNA as well as the INA. And I've worked with Google Ads programs and also, as a result, Google Analytics for about 10, maybe 12 agencies coast to coast in the US. So it's definitely a space that I have a passion for. So let's get started. 3 reasons why you have to track conversions. So the number one reason for setting up conversion tracking for your website is to have an understanding of what channels are driving the leads on your website. And when I say leads for nanny agencies, what I'm generally talking about are going to be nanny application submissions and then family form submissions or family inquiry submissions, whatever you call those within your agency. So I won't go through all of this data. This is just some sample data for you. But if I look at this, what I can see is that for this time frame, direct traffic, people that either typed in the URL, or for some reason we don't see any referral information, drove the most nanny application submissions. Organic search was next up, and then paid search and social both drove a couple over this time frame. And so from this perspective, direct and organic seems to have the biggest impact. The other thing that I see in this particular data is if I look at the social line, it didn't drive a ton of volume, but it had a very good conversion rate of 6.67%. And so what that tells me is that potentially if I could do a little bit more in that channel, that's going to be an effective use of my time as long as that conversion rate holds on that. Now, if I switch gears and look at family inquiry submissions for the same website, over this time frame, paid search was the only channel that drove any family inquiries over the time. And so that having this level of information around a program is really important, especially if you're going to spend time, effort, and money on your marketing efforts. So one of the questions that I've already been asked is around this idea of conversion rate optimization. So before I give you a couple of ideas for how you can really improve your conversion rate, I want to talk about the impact, right? So if I go back to the slide, you can see conversion rates, for example. Overall here, we've got 2.77% conversion rate for nanny applications, 0.64% for family inquiries. And so what that means for every, what percentage of all sessions are turning into conversions. That's the conversion rate. And so if I'm looking at before 470 sessions, 2.77% actually submitting the nanny application, that's 13 total nanny applications. Now, if I make some changes to whether it's my form, my website, or my messaging, if I can improve that conversion rate from 2.77% up to 4% for the same volume of traffic, I could have gotten, in this case, 5 to 6 more nannies without doing anything else, without driving any additional traffic or anything else. That gets me more nanny applicants over the time frame. If I do the same thing with the family inquiries, in this case, it was 0.64%. That drove 3 family inquiries. If I can take some steps and improve that just to 1.5%, which is a big jump, but what that means is I go from 3 family inquiries to 7 family inquiries. So I'm getting more than double the number of family inquiries for the same amount of traffic. So conversion rate optimization, if it's not something that you've thought about before, it's something that you need to start thinking about because of the impact it has. As somebody who manages Google Ads programs, what that means is that I can get you more return for your money if your website converts better. There's only so much that driving traffic is going to do if your website doesn't convert people well. And so before you can even start this whole process, the biggest thing is you need to have some conversion tracking data available. You need to have some conversion tracking in place. That's why we're doing this webinar. So that was reason number 1. The second reason is to really understand your return on investment. If you're going to spend money, and sometimes it is a substantial amount of money, especially in the nanny agency space, you have to know that you're getting a return. I have seen too many small businesses, and not just in the nanny industry, but across the board, where people are dumping money into Google Ads or Facebook advertising, and they're just hoping that they're getting a return on their money. And you don't have to operate in the dark. You can have clarity around this. If somebody's like, hey, Kim, I'll give you $1,000 a month of ad spend, just get me traffic, I can do that all day long. Conversion tracking is not required. But if you're really trying to understand business impact, you have to have it in place. One thing I always like to go through is how to, as a business, really start to evaluate ROI. And so in this example, and these are made up numbers, I assume that you've got like a $500 search fee, around 15% of the annual gross salary. And let's say that totals out to $6,000 that comes into your agency. And you hopefully know your numbers well enough, you know maybe your profit margin is 20% after everything's said and done. And that leads you to have $1,200 profit per placement. Now, if we then say that out for every 10 family inquiries that you get, you actually get 2 placements out of it. If we go through and do this math, right, and simple multiplication, right? So 6,000 times 20% gets us to 1,200. 1,200 times 20% gets us to 240. That $240 is what I refer to as the break-even cost per lead. If you spend more than this, you are losing money by running these ads. If you are paying less than this per lead, you are making money. And just so you know, even though I may say cost per lead, in most platforms, you're going to see that listed as cost per acquisition or CPA. And as a little asterisk on this, I would even argue potentially I would go one step farther in this math, because obviously you're needing to recruit candidates as well as families. And you might want to use, in this example, $120 per lead as your break even, since you need to be acquiring on both ends. So that's a good stopping point. Does anybody have questions about that math or about conversion rate optimization?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
And this, I don't know if it's off topic, but with the 500 search fee and the 15% annual gross salary, with that breakdown, I'm seeing that a lot across the board in the industry right now. With your professional recommendation and with tracking conversions, you know, the making money, breaking even, what do you recommend the percentage of annual gross or the flat fee model that some are doing? I'm seeing kind of everyone's kind of figuring out what's making the most sense right now in the industry.
So as far as which language works better, I can't speak to. But what I can tell you is that for the agencies where I've had discussions and they do a straight flat fee, they just back into it from the math, and it is still generally around that 15% mark in my experience, or something around that. As far as which one is going to convert better, I don't know, is the very simple answer. But what I would say is that's something that's easy enough to do some testing around. All right. And that's one example of how you might test for conversion rate optimization, is to, have it basically split your traffic, have half your traffic going to pages that does it as a percentage, the other half does it as a flat fee, and see which group converts better on your website. Does that help, Marie?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Of course. A couple of other things as it relates to conversion rate optimization. One of the things that you can do is to do things like shorten up your form. That's one that I talked about at the INA conference, something we were talking about before we formally started the session. But the more questions you ask on a form, the lower your conversion rate is going to be. And so as much as possible, what I generally advise to my clients is get the essentials on the form on your website. And if you can, try to get the remaining information on a follow-up, because the most difficult step is getting them in the door. And if you make that difficult, you're, in my opinion, going to hurt your business as a result. So what I would recommend is if you have specific qualifying questions that you really need to have answered, or you're going to waste too much time, like let's say you only staff full-time nannies and you really need to weed out people that are looking for babysitters and part-time nannies, then yeah, you can have that question to help conserve your time. But the one thing I want people to avoid is don't ask 20 or 30 questions on the form and risk people going, well, I don't have time for this, and them leaving versus getting that conversation started with somebody. And then the last couple of things that I'll talk about are fairly straightforward. One is think about the language that you're using on the page. Try to use enabling language. Try to address pain points on the page. When they're about to convert on your website, the language can definitely play a really big role. And then the last thing that is kind of universal around conversion rate is load time. If your website is slow to load for whatever reason, that can have a significant impact on conversion rate as well. So that's just a few ideas for you to think about if you're trying to think about how you might approach some conversion rate optimization. And the one thing that I will tell you is test one thing at a time. If you say, well, Kim said all 4 of these things, I'm going to do them all tomorrow. The problem is if your numbers improve, you don't know which thing improved your performance. So you want to make sure that if you're going to test a few different things, you test them in isolation as much as possible.
Kim, I have a question now
Yeah.
that you talk about that. And I think it's an important thing, and probably probably you don't have a specific answer for this, but you're speaking about making different kind of actions on your website or in your forms or to optimize a little bit your conversions. But do you have like and I agree with you when you're saying that you should always do one thing at a time, so you really know why your conversion rates like went up or went down based on that. But do you have like a specific time frame? Because all the time, like we're running experiments and trying to optimize our conversions. But do you have like a time frame or a specific amount of time that you feel that it's enough to measure or to see if the specific action that you took worked?
So it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of traffic volume. So if we're talking about a small agency that's getting a couple of hundred visits a month, it's going to take quite a while before you have what's statistically significant data. Whereas if you're a popular agency in New York City, you're probably going to get that data relatively quickly. And if you're able to do what we call true split testing, where you're sending half your traffic to one and half your traffic to the other, then there are statistical significance calculators on the internet where you can literally plug in, here's the number of visitors that went to A, here's the number of visitors that went to B, here's the number of conversions for A, conversions for B, is the difference significant? And it will tell you, is it a significant data point or not? And that's typically the kind of stuff that I'll do on my end before I'm going to move forward, unless it is crystal clear, right? If I see that one version is converting 6% and the other converted 1%, I don't need to go to a calculator for that. I'm ready to call that a test and move forward, as long as I'm not making that decision on only 1 or 2 conversions.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. So this is a fairly quick thing, tracking in Google Analytics and Google Ads. So you actually, if you're running Google Ads, you can actually track in either platform. So Google Ads has its own tracking, and it's fairly simple to do. You need to put some code on all the pages of your website, and then one particular piece of code on what we refer to as the thank you page, which we'll come back to. But that's the page that somebody is going to see after they complete the action. So after they fill out a form, thank you for completing the form. We'll reach out to you in 24 hours or something like that. The thing with Google Ads conversion tracking is it's only going to show you conversions that happen from your Google Ads program. And 2, if somebody at any point in their journey clicked on one of your ads and then they converted later on, Google Ads is still going to want to take credit for that conversion. So what I mean by that is, let's say somebody first came to your website from one of your ads, and then they came in from a Facebook post you had, and then they clicked on, I don't know, an email you sent them, and then they filled out a family inquiry. Even though the Google Ads click was way early, Google Ads will still want to take credit for that. Then we have Google Analytics. It's also fairly simple to do, because to do Google Analytics, you're going to put some code across your website. And then you're just going to tell Google Analytics, hey, Google Analytics, when somebody hits this page, the thank you page, they have converted on my website. That is a conversion. And we're going to walk through this process, so it's not something that you have to worry about understanding completely. It'll make a little bit more sense to you in a few minutes. So the nice thing with Google Analytics, and that's the screenshot that I showed you before, you're going to see conversions from all of your traffic sources, not just from one source. And so even if you're going to use Google Ads conversion tracking, which we're not going to talk about in too much detail today, you should still have Google Analytics in place, so you know how's your referral traffic doing when you have links on other websites that bring traffic, and how's your social media traffic doing. So having kind of cross-source information really is important. And the thing that's different with Google Analytics is it is agnostic to what traffic. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, because I think you're changing the slides, but I'm not seeing them change. I don't know if something's wrong with your screen sharing. I still see the slide where you have the Google Ads and Google Analytics like bullet points. Okay.
Well, that's... No, it should be. It should be bullet points.
Okay.
And then the last thing with Google Analytics is, because it's not a marketing platform, it is not trying to take credit wherever it can. And so Google Analytics is always going to give credit to what's called the last non-direct click. So if somebody, so basically to the last touch point, with the exception of somebody typing in your website. So now let's see if we're still flying. Are we good?
Yes, it's working now.
Okay. So now let's talk about how we're going to get started with Google Analytics. And I'm going to give you a tip that's advanced, but it is absolutely important, especially for our conversation around Enginehire specific conversion tracking. So to set up your Google Analytics account, you're going to go to analytics.google.com. And some of you may already have analytics set up. But if you don't, go to analytics.google.com, log in with your primary Google account, your primary Gmail account, or whatever you use for business. You're going to go through the setup process. It's going to walk you through a few steps, which we're going to do together. I set up a fake website for myself. And then you're going to go through and add the code that's provided to your website. Now, if you're using something like Wix, like Squarespace, like WordPress, there's probably going to be a very easy way for you to put in that tracking code. It's not going to be very difficult for you to do. All right, so let me switch gears a little bit. So I've set up a fake nanny agency called Rockstar Nannies Myrtle Beach. Now I'm going to go to analytics.google.com. And because I'm already logged in, it's like it just takes me to this page. I'm going to hit start measuring. This is going to be Rockstar Nannies MB. If you don't know, I'm based out of Myrtle Beach. That's why I picked it. You can uncheck stuff, check stuff if you want. This stuff is not too important. I'm actually going to uncheck these because I'm going to delete this after we're done. And then my property is the same. So in this case, I might do, actually, I'm just going to leave it the same, Rockstar Nannies. This is just the name. I'm on the East Coast. And then $5. So for this example, I'm going to be creating a universal analytics property. So I'm actually going to toggle this to yes. I want to explain a little bit of the reason why I'm doing this. Some website platforms have not yet changed for the new version of Google Analytics, which is called GA4. And so I felt like doing a universal analytics example was gonna be more applicable to everyone. But I'm going to be creating some video content that I'll share that will get distributed to you specific to GA4 later on. So I need to have my website. Let's see here. There we go. There's my fancy website. There we go. And I'm just going to create a universal analytics property. And it's going to ask me some business information. It's going to give me some terms. All right. So now you're going to see some instructions. And it's going to say, hey, Kim, you need to put this code on every page of your website. And for a few of you, that might be the case. And in that case, you might have to have your web developer do it for you or something like that. But for most people, all you really need to worry about is this tracking ID number right here. Because if you're talking about Squarespace or Wix or most themes in WordPress, they're just going to have a little Google Analytics section, and you're just going to put in your tracking ID. So in the case of a Wix website, that's all it is. So I'm going to go into Wix. Now I won't be able to actually go all the way through it because I only have the free, but I'll show you where to do it. Let's see here, marketing and SEO. There should be an integrations. Marketing integration. So I'm in marketing and SEO, marketing home, go to marketing integrations. And there's going to be an option here for Google Analytics. You literally just press connect and put in the code. And you're going to see here they actually have integrations for a lot of different platforms like Google Ads right here. And if you're on really any platform, it's going to be similar to this. Find out. And if you need to, go to the help section and just type in Google Analytics, and they'll give you step-by-step instructions on how to implement it. So if I go back, we're going to pretend like I have it set up. And then otherwise, your Google Analytics is ready to go. Does anybody have any questions about that process? I'm going to take the silence as a no. That's always a fun part of doing webinars. All right.
I just want to add a comment there. Usually, because I know that a lot of people use WordPress, most of the times WordPress does those kind of integrations with plugins. So it's better not to go to the settings, but try to find the proper plugin to do that. So just because I think there's a difference between the normal, regular hosting websites like Wix or Squarespace, but WordPress works a little bit different.
Yeah, so I'll actually show WordPress because that one is really common, and I'll show it a couple of different ways. So so in my case, I'm using the Divi theme on my website, and so one option is to go to the theme options, and you can really paste in code, and that's probably the more technical version of it. But the simpler way, as Daniel was saying, is go to add new plugins. Do a search for Google Analytics. You're going to have a number of options. I would say read through some reviews, but here, GA Google Analytics, install it, and then you're literally just going to have to put in your tracking ID code, and it'll apply it across your website. All right. So one of the things, and this is the more advanced piece, but I'm hoping the instructions are crystal clear, and I'll show a demo of this as well. So when you have a third-party platform involved in your website, where people are going to kind of bounce back and forth a little bit. So in this case, the Enginehire forms, right? Or on my website, I have a calendar scheduling tool, and that causes the same kind of issue. And so what you want to do is you want to tell Google Analytics that when somebody does these little bounces, not to treat it like they're going between two different websites. You want them, it's from Google Analytics perspective, to seem like they are staying on the same website. And so what we refer to this as, you're eliminating self-referrals. This is just to say, that's just an easy one, but then you want to also eliminate Enginehire referral traffic. And the reason for this is if you don't do this step in your analytics, a lot of your conversions are going to look like they're coming from referral traffic from Enginehire. And that's not as valuable as knowing the original source of that traffic. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to the admin section. Under property, you're going to go to tracking info, referral exclusion list. You're going to add a new referral. You're going to put in the domain that you want to exclude. That's all you have to do. So if I'm now going to go, that's the wrong one. So here I am in Google Analytics. I'm going to go to admin here on the bottom left-hand side. Under property, which is right here in the middle, I'm going to go to tracking info. And one of the options that pops up is referral exclusion list. And so you can see my domain is already on the exclusion list. I guess Google does that automatically now, which is great. So the only thing I need to do is add an Enginehire. So I'm going to add a referral exclusion, do enginehire.io, and hit create. Now, any traffic that comes from that domain, it will not be counted as referral traffic. Really easy, but a lot of people don't know you have to do this, and they don't understand why their tracking isn't working correctly. So that's it for that. So now, probably the most relevant piece of the conversation for us is how to set up Enginehire so that we can track conversions on our website correctly. So what you're going to do is you're going to utilize a new feature that, how long ago was the redirect rolled out, Daniel?
I think like a month and a half ago, something like that.
Okay, and I know you guys sent out a nice video about it, but we'll walk through the process. So what you're doing with this new feature in Enginehire is, instead of having a little message pop up after somebody completes the form that says, thank you for completing the form, it's going to take them to a new page on your website that is what we call a thank you page. And the reason we want to do that is because then we have something to tell Google Analytics when somebody arrives on this page, they filled out a form. So that's the reason that we're doing this redirect. And just so you know, this is not Enginehire specific. If you're using other form tools, If you're using any calendar tools on your website, a lot of them will have this ability, and you should utilize it, not just a little message. So before you do this, you need to create 2 new pages on your website. They're not going to be linked to your navigation or anything like that. They're just going to be isolated standalone pages. And I refer to those as thank you pages. And so I give you 2 examples here. Let's say you've got a family form and a nanny candidate form. Then you're going to create 2 separate pages on your website, and you can name them whatever you want. You just have to remember what you call them. So maybe you have one that's thank you families and one that's thank you nannies. Or if you use different forms for full-time nannies versus part-time nannies, then you might actually have more than 2 if you want to track it to that level. But for most agencies, this is going to work. So you're going to do a thank you families, thank you nannies, and this is a simple page. I'm going to show you one. This is a thank you page if somebody fills out the contact form on my website. Right? It is nothing special. It's nothing fancy. It's just, thanks for reaching out. I'll be in touch as soon as possible, usually within 24 hours. You can add more messaging if you want. If you want to get really sophisticated with it, if you've got a blog on your website, you could say, thanks for reaching out. We'll be in touch within 24 hours. Oh, and in the meantime, here are 3 recent blogs you might want to check out, and keep them on your website for a little bit longer. So you can get a little creative with it if you want. So once you have those pages created, you're going to log into Enginehire, and then you're going to go to the Builders section and go to Profile Builder. So you're going to hit the Builders drop down, choose Profile Builder, and then you're going to go to the application form that you want to track. So your main family form and your main candidate form. You're going to hit the pencil icon. And then what you're going to do is right here where it says custom redirect link on application form submission, you're going to put the full URL for that thank you page. So in my case, it might be www.rockstarnanniesmb.com/thankyou-families. And then for the candidate form, I'm going to send them to the thank you nannies page. Now, one of the things that you'll want to do, it should be by default already, but just make sure that this redirect to dashboard on registration is marked as no. And so now when somebody fills out your form, they'll be redirected to the thank you families page. Now, Daniel told me that there's actually a pop-up that comes up that they have to close out before they'll go. But anyways, they'll end up on that thank you families page. That's probably a good pausing point. Questions there? Anything to add to the process, Daniel?
No, just like the only thing is like, I don't know if you mentioned it, but there's an option that says redirect to the dashboard registration. It has to be always checked as no, because if it's checked as yes, they will get redirected to their dashboard instead to the thank you page. So that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Cool. All right. So what have we done so far? So 1, we know why we have to track conversions. We have an idea of what we should be paying per lead and all that good stuff. But the biggest things that we've done is we've set up a Google Analytics account for our website. We've got our website, so now we're tracking when traffic comes in. We've set up the redirection in Enginehire on so that the traffic that when they fill out a form, they go to one of our thank you pages. Now, what we need to do is to tell Google Analytics how to know when somebody has hit that, completed the form completion. So we're going to create goals in Google Analytics. So we're going to be going back to that admin section, and then we're going to be going under view, And then we're going to go to goals. We're going to create a new one. And what we're going to be creating is what we call a destination goal. And what that in plain English means is if somebody arrives on this page, they have completed a conversion. That's what a destination goal does. So, and we're going to go through this live, but what we're going to be creating under destination, we're going to choose begins with. So that's over here under goal detail. So we're going to have clicked on custom, destination goal. We're going to have named it. And then we're going to choose destination begins with. And then we're only going to put what comes after the slash. So in this case, slash thank you families. We're not going to put in www.rockstarnannies. That's understood by Google already. And then we're going to hit save. So let's go and take a look at what this will look like to actually do this. Let's see here. So I'm going to go back to the home just so I'm starting at the main page. So I'm going to go to admin. Under view now, I'm going to go over here to the third item, which is goals. And right now you're going to see there's no goals. I'm going to click on new goal. I'm going to do the first one I'm going to do is family submissions. So let's do family form submission. Don't worry about the slot ID stuff. For type, we're going to pick destination. Hit continue. And then for goal details, it's going to be defaulting to equals to. Don't use that. Do begins with. Thank you, families. And then once you're doing it for the candidate, it's going to be thank you, nannies, or whatever. Don't worry about value. Don't worry about funnel. And hit save. Now you're going to see there's this verify this goal option. If you just walk through the process of setting up the thank you pages, there's not going to be any conversions in Google Analytics yet. So verifying this goal is not going to show you any data. But if you, let's say on Monday, you set up your thank you pages and did the rest of the process, and it's Saturday before you actually do this piece of it, the Google Analytics goals, then you could click verify this goal, and it would tell you, based on your goal, you would have had a conversion rate of 2% or something like that. But for right now, I'm just going to hit save. There's family form submission. And then because it's fairly quick, nanny application submissions, destination, continue, begins with, slash thank you, nannies, save. Now we have both conversions set up in Google Analytics. Now, anytime somebody goes to those pages on your website, they will be tracked as conversions in Google Analytics. Now, once you've got these set up, you're going to want to test these. If you get form completions regularly, you can probably just wait for form completions to come in. And then all you'll do is go over here to conversions. And by the way, you'll notice that mine were collapsed. If you don't want them to be collapsed, you can hit this little arrow at the bottom. Where you're going to go to conversions, goals, overview. And here you can see family form submissions, nanny application submissions, and then you'll start to see the chart fill in with peaks as you get them coming in. Now, if you don't get a lot of conversions, so I recently actually had a client where I had to do this, where we were getting nanny application submissions, no problem, but I don't know how it is for your agencies, but family form submissions are a bit slow for them. And I had, since I created their conversion tracking, not seen any family form submissions come through. And so what I did is I literally just typing it in the URL, went to the thank you families page, so that now I created this page view and then I saw this peak happen. But whatever that means is you just want to make sure that you've got data coming in.
Does it take time for those to show up because it's not, the goals aren't showing up on that?
In Google Analytics, I mean, when I did that test, I actually just did that test, I think it was yesterday. It took maybe 5 minutes at the most. It wasn't long.
Okay, mine aren't showing up yet, so maybe it'll just take some time.
Possibly. So maybe towards the end of the session, check it again. And if it's not, as long as we've got a little bit of time, we can actually go through. If you're okay with sharing your screen, we can do a quick diagnosis, or I'll have my email address in the presentation and you can email me. I'm happy to do a really quick screen share just to diagnose it for you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. All right. So there's two main places now, and the goals are available everywhere in Google Analytics in a lot of different views. But the two main ones that you're likely to look at is number one is the acquisition channels view. I'll show you how to get to that. So that's going to be acquisition, all traffic, channels. Now mine obviously is not going to have anything because it's not a real website, but this is that same thing that I showed you earlier in the presentation. If I go back, that is this view. It'll have actually a little bit more data. I cut out some of it, but that's where you're going to see your traffic by channel, as well as the conversion information. The only trick here is there's this drop down, and you're going to click that drop down to specify what goal you want to look at, or if you want to look at all goals. So that's going to be one of them. And then the other one is what I just showed you, which was the goals page, which looked kind of like this. All right. So the last thing that I'm going to go through, and if you're not running Google Ads, at least right now, this may not be something that you're going to do immediately, but if you are running Google Ads and you're not tracking conversions, you absolutely positively need to be tracking conversions, and good conversions. Before I kind of dive into this, I'll talk about some of the things that I've encountered working with agencies. I've seen some agencies that are tracking engagement goals as conversions in Google Ads. Things like if people spending more than 5 minutes on the website, people looking at more than 3 pages on the website, things like that. They're tracking those as conversions in Google Ads. And the problem there is those don't make you money. Getting people to complete forms is what helps your agency make money. So you want to make sure you're tracking the right things. So to import conversions into Google Ads, and I'm going to show this to you using a different account. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to have to link your Google Ads and your Google Analytics accounts together. Then you're going to go to the conversion section, and you're going to be adding a conversion action. You're going to import, and then you're going to choose what conversions you want to bring in. So give me 1 second just to hunt down my Google Ads account that I'm using for y'all. There we go. All right. So to get to the various steps, the first thing that you're going to do is go to Tools and Settings, Linked Accounts. You're going to, from this list, choose Google Analytics. You can see mine was already selected. But if I do something like here, go to Details, you're going to see an Add button. You'd see the same thing for Google Analytics. And then as long as you're logged into the same account, when you go into this, you're going to have a list of Google Analytics accounts to choose from, and you're just going to click on link. That's going to connect Google Ads and Google Analytics together. Then to import the conversions, you're going to go back up to Tools and Settings. You're going to go under Measurement, Conversions. And you're going to see this one already has some, but that's okay. There we go. You're going to do New Conversion Action. And then if you're importing Google Analytics conversions, you're going to be clicking on the Import button. You're going to choose Google Analytics UA. That's for Universal Analytics. Hit Continue. And then any goal that you have in Google Analytics will show up here. And you will literally just choose which ones you want to track in. Import and continue. And it's going to say, hey, you've imported 2 goals from Google Analytics. And they will appear here.
I'm sorry, what was the first step to connect the two?
Yeah, you're going to go to Tools and Settings. Under Setup, go to Linked Accounts. From the list under From Google, you're going to see this Google Analytics UA. You're going to click on Details. So if I do, I'm just going to pick a random one. From here, it's just a matter of following directions. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what it's going to say for the Google Analytics one, but you're going to have some kind of a button or an option to connect the accounts together.
Will it be all website data or import site metrics?
You would do all website data is the one you're going to want to pick.
Okay. Should I toggle on the import site metrics as well?
Yes, you can go ahead and toggle that as well. So what import site metrics does, I'm glad you're doing this live while I'm talking, because that's actually quite helpful. What that does is that's actually going to bring in things like time on site and bounce rate and other analytics data into Google Ads in case you ever want to take a look at it there. Most people won't, but I'm always a fan of having more data than less.
Perfect. Okay. I'm not seeing those pages that we added still. So hopefully they'll come in at some point.
Okay. Yeah, and since we're running short on time, why don't you just send me an email and we'll work on that together.
Great, I'll do that. Thank you so much.
Of course. So to summarize, you absolutely mustn't be tracking conversions. That I don't consider this to be an optional activity unless you like to operate blind. The full setup process for non-experts will typically take about 1 to 2 hours is what I would block out. So and then obviously it may take you a little bit more or a little bit less, but a couple of hours is good. If you do run into problems, there's my email address, kim.mccumber@floodlighttraining.com. And I'm sure Daniel probably will send it out with the recording. If it's something related to the Enginehire side, don't contact me, contact Daniel. I won't be able to help you too much with that. But I'm definitely, and please do email me if you run into anything on the Google Analytics or Google Ads side. If you attended this webinar, I want to make sure that you were fully and able to accomplish our goals. As I mentioned before, I am going to be creating some videos, specifically the GA4, which is the new version of Google Analytics. If you want to be notified when these are available, if you go to my website, go to Google Ads Academy. I only have 2 main pages. Go to Google Ads Academy. There's a little notify me form. Put in your email address there, and you'll get an occasional email where I just update, say, hey, here's a course I've got coming out. And then when this course is available, you'll be notified of that as well.
Thank you,
We've
Kim.
got-
I think we'll almost pass the hour, but we have a couple of 2 minutes. So in case someone has a question, feel free to ask, raise their hand. I don't know if you want
Please
to.
do.
Yeah. I don't think no one has a question.
Well, go through the process. If you going through the process, you probably will have some questions, and definitely email me if you do. And you are very welcome, Maria.
Okay, Kim. So thanks a lot for the amazing webinar. I think that I also learned a lot of new things, and it's always, I think that the main thing that I got from the webinar is like you always have to be measuring everything and trying to, and as you said, like measuring what makes sense for your business and what makes you money. Not because I think that sometimes we try to measure a lot of things, but some of them don't make any sense at all.
That's absolutely right.
Okay, Kim. So thanks again, and thank you all for coming to the webinar, and I hope that you have a great day. We will be sending an email with the recording, so don't worry about it. Bye, Kim.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.